Coming up on Kamen Rider Overdemons. I've been waiting for this moment. Here. It's time for you to be the main character now.
But it's the last episode. Why now?
There's no better way to debut than in the last episode.
But this is Sakura's episode.
Then you make it your episode.
But Gifu.
You don't have to fight Gifu. Main character status means you steal a spotlight from deserving characters. I do it all the time. Besides, nothing says Alpha Chad than being friend-zoned 14 times in the course of a year. There's a lot to cover, so we're just gonna go ahead and jump right into this one. Taking control of a possessed vice, everything is off the table. Gifu's time is now. Hey, wait, where are you going? Where's this plot going? What about the bug arc drawing out the demons? You mean it was all for nothing? Got that again! 2 opening bits for the price of 1, stuffed. Just like this episode. This week's Revice definitely clogged up the urinal by taking a massive dump in it, showing that Gifu is probably the biggest waste of a villain we've gotten, with a rushed ultimate form to satisfy the fandom, and, in fashion, the final boss turning out to be a writer after all. It's Revice 46. Ignoring the potential plot point of having Vice be evil, Jeanne question if he's all there or if they're even safe. But with no memories of the encounter, Vice was really just a mouthpiece for Gifu, since Gifu can't actually talk. Until he does. Later this episode. Either way, Jeanne decide that they gotta come up with some sort of plan to go ahead and take him down. Sakura, still not understanding of the situation with Love Cub, insists that she needs protection. And as quickly as the shouting match began, things step up another notch when Hana shows up to beat the point that Sakura's been missing the whole time. Everyone wants to protect people. It's literally Hiromi's point to Tamaki last week. But this time, since Hana's the one that said it, Tamaki also now understands. Sakura, still not understanding of Love Cub's situation, goes back to the happy spa, admitting that she can't join the fight until she figures out exactly what's going on. Figuring out exactly what's going on is what the guys are trying to do in regards to Gifu. With Daiji and Kagero flip-flopping personas, they come to the conclusion that the Gifu that they were fighting wasn't really the real Gifu after all. This is some rushed plot going on right here. It's like they couldn't decide on how they were going to pay off this whole Gifu thing after all. Essentially, the plan is, while they fight Gifu on the outside, someone has to go inside his pocket dimension and find a way to destroy that as well. Who's got the short straw? Why, Vice, of course. Conveniently, they get an Amber Alert on their phones. How the media got such a good photo of Gifu, and how they also instantly give you verbal notice? Y'all's tech society must really be up there. But then again, Kamen Riders are a thing, so yeah. They spot that Gifu has shown up with some terrible angling. So, it's time for the Igarashi family to transform and roll. Oh yeah, this plot point is still a thing. We forgot about it. With last minute words of encouragement, the guys head out. But wait, Mama-chan Yukimi has to have her say as well, since Genta remains missing. Damn, that has to be some strong-ass-itis. 2 plot points to address. First off, we have Hiromi checking in on George. Trying to get the answer to Gifford Rex's diminishing returns, George wants nothing to do with it, since it doesn't matter anymore. The Igarashi's plot armor supersedes even his knowledge base here. So, they will probably just end up pulling something out of their ass. But not to leave Hiromi empty-handed, he gives him a bow. Because, like, Hiromi's gun isn't that effective, so I guess an arrow to the knee will suffice? Meanwhile, Tamaki checks in on main character Hikaru. Hikaru, ever the stalker, knew that he was gonna end up showing up. As such, he's passing on the main character status to Tamaki. Because there's no time to shine like an episode in which too much will happen too soon, too quickly. Thus, Hikaru knows that he's in ample condition to be part of this clusterfuck of an episode. While Sakura chills with Love Cub, she finally decides to physically summon her, getting the answer that she's been ignoring. Love Cub tells her that she just wants to protect her. and that makes her scar expand. Finally, Sakura gets what's been going on. Meanwhile, the guys take on Gifu, who proves that he doesn't need a mouthpiece to talk to them. But conveniently leaving his dimensional portal still open, Iki kicks Vice right in there to split their efforts. What's Vice find inside? Gifu's coffin. Why is this a thing? My head hurts. What are you guys even doing with this plot right now? You'd think they would have alluded this before, like 2 episodes ago. Gifu's coffin is worse than walking Gifu. Not just with CG attacks, but CG hand-waving. Struggling in their fight, the guys get support from Aguilera. Though, watching Aguilera get choked out by demons, Iki literally says, "You got this, girl." This shot is seriously awkward. Knowing that his Nabe is in trouble, and with fifth found confidence, Tamaki shows up. In a role reversal, being told to smile by a choked out Aguilera, Tamaki finally. Wait, did they forget to add the sound effect of the Vice stamp being pressed? They are really rushing here. Now, able to get his licks in, the worst suit in Revice can finally fight alongside the second worst suit in Revice against demons. Neat. Not to be outdone, Sakura joins the fight along with Love Cub. As George called it, she pulled a power-up right out of her ass, revealing the new King Cobra Vice stamp that was in no way, shape, or form made by George and given the handout that every other Vice stamp has gotten. I'm just gonna say plot armor made her regular Cobra Vice stamp evolve into this until we end up seeing like base Jeanne again in an episode or something to disprove this. I'm just gonna go with that. Transformation jingle be slapping though. Introducing Hyper Muteki Jeanne. I mean, Invincible Jeanne. Sporting a character insert song that has one love too many, and attachments that can be used as daggers or stingers, Invincible Jeanne takes care of the dead men and makes her way to the boys. We see the most movement out of Gifu yet, avoiding Iki's attacks like this show avoids giving Gifu plot, and Hiromi catching the most ironic dub ever. Seriously. Arrows? Arrows. Take down a full-ass Giftarian. Y'all, who even needs writers? They could have just dipped into the Arrowverse and gotten Oliver Queen. Season probably would have been wrapped up in like 1 episode. Iki sends in Gifford to assist Vice with the red-hot fires of Friction Burn to light Gifu's coffin ablaze. Synergizing and getting their rider kicks on both simultaneously, Gifu's been cut off from his pocket dimension. Taken aback by all of this, Gifu fumbles away while questioning their resolve, which leads us to a sibling featuring Vice quadruple rider kick, sending Gifu into a black hole of nothingness. It's over. Gifu is finally dead. We think, but as one threat leaves, another starts up. With this week's episode of Revice, we get the super form of Jeanne with Invincible Jeanne. And with that, let's talk forms. I like it. They changed up the chest plate and put Love Cub's face right on it. They changed up the shoulders and added some helmet attachments to make it look like hair. I already liked the base form of Jeanne, and this one just adds to it without looking intrusive. This one's going in the real fine tier, right next to Shining Agito. Rating time! This episode probably had the worst pacing issues ever. Too many last-minute additions, character plot payoffs, a solution for beating Gifu pulled out of nowhere, and even though it was theoretical, it ended up being proven right. Even though, okay, you know, I'll address that in that moment. If this episode was truly the last episode in the series, it would have missed the landing by 30 miles and landed in the ocean. F. Vice was literally in Gifu's dimension 2 weeks ago. They could have just planted the seed of his coffin being there then. But nope, Gifu is by far a terrible villain and got a terrible end to a terrible plot. So many things are just getting picked up and tossed right out almost as soon as it happens. They spent last week teasing us for some evil Vice, but did we get it? Nope. The plot gets dropped faster than Marvel Phase 4 acknowledging that they had no plan. Tamaki finally gets to be a Kamen Rider, like 20 episodes too late. We are at the finish line, and now you choose to give him this? I'm sorry, Hiromi and Daiji, but Tamaki's taking that crown from you both on this one. Is it satisfying to see him henshin? Sure. Did it still feel off? Absolutely. Like I mentioned before, they didn't even include the pressing sound on the Vice stamp. Sakura gets character growth in 2 episodes, but it came at the cost of her regressing. Love Cove was already a manifestation of her weakness, how she thought others looked at her, even acknowledging this when she first transformed into Jeanne. But then she treats Love Cove exactly how she felt she was being treated. You would have thought that the first time this happened, she would have learned. But it took Hana's shout-splaining, Hiromi's mansplaining for both her and Tamaki to understand what they must do. Every damn character in this show seems like they need to regress and relearn a lesson that they have already learned just to get growth. Some will argue that these characters are just misunderstood, but when you have to write a whole essay to justify bad writers and try to read between the lines just to explain how things are, how they are, you've just admitted that the source is bad. Okay, I was this close to doing a live stream this past week regarding the scans that lead into next week and are teased at the end of this episode. So I'm going to change things up a little bit now and actually talk about this final arc. My prediction regarding George and why he's doing what he's doing. The reason why I'm doing this now is because, like most show speculations, it's either going to age like milk in a week or two or get fulfilled. So, if you don't want to get spoiled beyond the teaser for next week, bye. Juga! Kamen Rider Juga! 10 Vice stamps plus Kuga, or George plus Kuga. The fanboyism is strong with this one. Now, I'll talk forms next week, but let's look at a few things here. The main thing that I really want to focus on is this Vice stamp, or rather the pattern on the bottom of it. The symbol of this Vice stamp to me looks like the Holy Trinity, which with some of the religious subtext being thrown around in this show would make sense. However, the Trinity does represent the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Now, who does that sound like? This is the story of George in a nutshell. Why would he suddenly want to become the bad guy? We needed to hit the 50 episode mark. Well, besides that, George's arc throughout this entire show has been one of conflict convergence when it comes to his fanboyism and being a man of science. I mentioned it very early on in some of the first reviews I did for this series. George always seemed like he was preparing for something. Especially being the fanboy that he is, why give others the power to become a Kamen Rider while not be one yourself? Well, if you're a scientist, anyone and everyone can be your guinea pig until you perfect your craft. Driven to outdo his father, but having to fall in line once he returned, the resentfulness was always there. This comes to a massive turn when Masumi reveals that he implanted his own demon inside of George, which in turn cheapens George's success up until now. Relying on his father's prototypes, then building off of that, nothing was really his own. Though throughout the course of the show, we see him change up the formula, from relying on demons to use the drivers, to start to wane off of that. See, he's been growing resentful of not just his father, but of demons. Thus, in this case, Masumi would be representing the father portion of the Trinity, George, the son, and his demon, the spirit. Now, why would he turn evil? He could just be chaotic good, in a sense of now seeing demons and everyone's inner demon as a bad thing. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, what happens? You can't just kill off everybody's demons. How would humans exist? Well, we have multiple instances of humans already existing without demons. Hiromi is the prime example. But the thing is, now with Gifu gone, the Igarashis would be the last remaining people with Gifu cells that can keep the cycle going. Either way, wouldn't the proper way to put an end to Gifu be by getting rid of the Igarashis? All I'm saying is, if the Henshin jingle doesn't say no fear, no pain, I will be devastated. So, what did you all think on that theory that will likely age like Hiromi next week? As well as this week's cluster of an episode. Sakura getting a much needed upgrade, and Tamaki being the main character? Anyway, that's it for me. I've gotta edit all this now. Bye.